Infinity Train has become one of the most popular cartoons of its time since its release. Ever since it was first shown as a short on Cartoon Network's YouTube channel, fans went crazy for wanting it to be made into a full-fledged series. Thankfully, we got our wish with Infinity Train not only getting one season specifically called Book 1, but a second one as well called Book 2. And man, did Owen Dennis and his team deliver. Solid comedy, mostly from 1-1, a perfectly fitting OST considering the tone of the show, likable protagonists and antagonists, and I don't think I've ever seen a show give off a more suspenseful vibe after each passing episode until I watched Infinity Train. It's become one of my favorite shows on all of Cartoon Network. So now that both these books have concluded, a big lingering question remains. Which book was better? Of course, that's subjective, since with Infinity Train's case, I don't think Book 1 is inherently better than Book 2 in all regards, and vice versa. Like, there's no factually better book. There's levels to it, and of course, it's opinion-based to decide which is better. So today I'm going to be breaking down these books individually to properly figure out which one of them is quote-unquote better. Then I'll leave it up to you guys in the comments section so you guys can decide for yourselves as well. I think it'd be best to go in chronological order, of course, so let's start off with Book 1. Book 1 focuses on Tulip's journey through the Infinity Train. Tulip Olsen had been having a very hard time dealing with her life at home due to her parents' divorce. She's sent to the breaking point when she finds out her dad or mom can't take her to game design camp due to other priorities. She runs away from home and her problems to eventually get picked up by the Infinity Train, a supernatural train that picks up people who are running away from their issues. The train's goal, at least when 1-1 is the conductor, is to help the passengers go on a journey of self-growth so they can learn how to properly deal with their problems instead of running from them. These passengers also get starting numbers on their hand to determine how severe the problem is, / how much time they need to spend on the train to fix it. The number on a passenger's hand will go down whenever that passenger makes mental progress towards solving the issue they ran from, and will go up whenever they stray away from solving said issue. I really like Tulip as a main protagonist because she was a very relatable character in many different ways. Although she had a lot of nerdy interests and hobbies like, coding and game design, she had a pretty magnetic personality to the point where she was able to befriend most of the people she met on the train before she got her exit. I'd say her family situation was the most relatable thing about her though, because of how common divorce is between couples these days. Statistically speaking, it's damn near a coin flip whether a married couple can make it the whole distance or not. Even with divorces being super common, the effects of divorced couples with children can be incredibly negative on the kids. Even if the children themselves don't know it while it's happening, it still affects them. Now, I personally can't relate to Tulip in this regard completely because both of my parents are still together, but even still, I feel for her character hard on that. Tulip's journey throughout the train was quite the sight to behold. Learning more and more about her family's situation each episode, finding out what really went down was so well paced. We'd get episodes like the Crystal Caller, where Tulip is forced to sing Word Up by Cameo, real song by the way, if you guys didn't know. In order to get out of said car, she was in a lot of denial prior to singing the song, thinking it wouldn't work because of how quote-unquote dumb the song is, but in reality she loves that song because it reminds her of the good times with her parents when they were one big happy family, constantly doing things together with smiles on their faces. The Cat's Car 2 with Tulip's VHS tape. That episode in particular was probably my favorite episode in season 1. Seeing a montage of Tulip's memories with her parents, finding out a lot of those memories weren't actually true. Tulip was just remembering all these moments in a positive nature to force reality out of her mind. The divorce was one thing, but she refused to face the issue and never talked about it with anybody, not even her friends. She shut her friends out quite a bit actually due to the divorce. The supernatural characters introduced throughout season 1 were great too. The main side characters were Atticus, a Corgi King from the Corgi car, 1-1, the conductor who couldn't remember he is the conductor, and the Cat, a con artist with very hard to read motives. The way these characters interacted was amazing. It never felt like there was a dull interaction amongst these characters, whether it was sad, comedic, serious, etc. There was always genuine emotion there. Another side character that only appeared in one episode of season 1, who was focused on a lot in said episode, was Mirror Tulip / MT, soon to be Lake. She was introduced in the Chrome car, which was a car that was filled with nothing but reflective surfaces. MT was obsessed with getting into the Prime world to live her own life and had been for a while. Although she was a literal reflection of Tulip, their personalities were nothing alike. MT hated being forced to do things Tulip liked to do, and there was nothing MT could do to stop it because she's a reflection, so she has to constantly be mirroring Tulip's movements. She ended up betraying Tulip once they switched places, planning to keep Tulip trapped in the mirror world until they worked out a truce. Tulip was able to give MT her reflective pocket tool so MT would be able to walk outside of the Chrome car. She parts ways with Tulip by the end of the episode, saying she wants to just do her own thing, and that won't be the last time we see her character. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Last but not least, how the season concluded / how Tulip was able to get her exit came down to Tulip going head to head against the supposed conductor to rescue Atticus and finally leave the train. But first, she needed to figure out who her enemy truly was. Thanks to the cat, Tulip was able to find out the conductor was really a woman named Amelia who started off as a passenger on the train. She was picked up by the train due to her not being able to move on from the death of her husband, Alric. She spent multiple years on the train attempting to create another life with Ulrich in one of the supernatural cars. She was so dead set on this idea, she dethroned the original conductor 1-1 in order to gain more power to achieve this goal. Due to this twisted mindset, her number had become so large that it was covering the majority of her body. Tulip and Amelia's confrontation saved Amelia in a sense. Tulip's advice how Amelia needs to move on and grow as a person was able to get to her. Tulip saw Amelia and thought maybe she would end up like that if she wasn't able to move on from her parents' divorce. And I think Amelia's main issue on the train prior to Tulip's arrival was she never had someone to just give it to her straight on what she needs to do. The train isn't going to do it because the train wants the passenger to learn on their own as much as possible. Sadly, the train does take passengers that don't want help / don't think they need any, and Amelia was just one of them. Tulip's advice to Amelia was the straw that broke the camel's back to get her exit. The season ends with a mini time skip of Tulip fully moved on, living happily even with her parents divorced. Now for book 2, it takes a bit of a different approach than book 1 did. Book 1 focused completely on the story of a passenger, their journey through the train, and what caused the train to pick them up in the first place. While season 2 is kind of half focused on a denizen, one of the train's supernatural beings who can't leave, who's trying to live her life as freely as possible, and a passenger. That denizen is MT / Mirror Tulip / Lake. Now, even though she was focused on a lot during the trailers, I still thought while these trailers were first coming out before season 2 actually started, that Jesse would be more of a focus than Lake due to him being a passenger, but after watching the whole season, I did like the direction they took with Lake a lot, and how she was a slightly more of a focus than Jesse was. She had been on the run from the Flex for her crime of leaving the mirror world for quite a bit, long enough to the point where they had to make a wanted poster of her with a bounty on it. She meets Jesse in the family tree car while running from the Flex. What I really liked about the dynamic between Jesse and Lake was them becoming friends, helped each other grow together a lot. When it came to season 1, all the denizens were indirectly / directly helping Tulip grow / overcome her issues with her family. Tulip wasn't really helping Atticus or 1-1 grow on a personal level like that, but with Jesse and Lake, it was equal growth and equal help from each side, with Alan Dracula, the deer, being kind of a silent mediator of sorts due to his calming presence. Episode 2 begins to give an insight as to why Jesse may have ended up in the Infinity Train. While he was trying to mediate the bickering family tree heads, he wasn't able to properly take a side because he didn't want either side to be mad or dislike him. It shows that he's not capable of making his own decisions and the influence of others has a unhealthy effect on him. This is further developed in episodes like the map car, where Jesse tells Lake his story about being forced to do the butterfly for his swim team, even though he didn't like doing the butterfly. He wasn't even able to go to state because too many people qualified. Again, in the Toad car, when Jesse watches the video of he and his friends basically bullying Jesse's brother Nate, he's a major pushover and cares too much about the approval of his peers, so much so that he was willing to let his brother get hurt and cry so these kids could like him even more. Throughout all these story reveals, Lake is helping every step of the way with solid advice / good conversation, telling Jesse he should do what he wants to do sometimes, hence what got him talking about wanting to swim freestyle instead of the butterfly due to its simple nature. That exchange helped his number go down to 31 at the time. With the video of Nate being bullied too, Lake telling Jesse his friends are bad news since they made him sell out his own brother. Jesse, on the other hand, helped Lake become a lot less selfish than she was at the start of the season. She couldn't stand being told what to do or how to act, even if it was a super insignificant request. They were both polar opposites in a sense when they first met, when you really think about it. Lake was overly selfish and Jesse was overly selfless. It was a great portrayal of opposites attracting, then growing into better people due to it. Now, as for the antagonists, I like how they were done a bit more in book 2 than book 1. Amelia was cool, don't get me wrong. She always had that overlooming presence / mystery surrounding her, at least surrounding her title, the, supposed conductor, which kept me always guessing while I was watching book 1. However, having that threat of an antagonist always going after the protagonist is just as cool, if not cooler in some cases. The Flex in this case were those antagonists. Their sole mission was to arrest Lake, then shred her to pieces. That was all they cared about, and they were willing to do whatever it took to take her down, even if it meant losing their own lives. Although they failed in capturing Lake, I can't help but commend commend them on their sheer determination to get the job done. Mace was willing to lose his own life but still die happily if it meant he could take Lake down with him. Then we got characters like Grace along with her rebel army of passengers. She had a very discriminative and manipulative personality. She believes anyone who is on the train and doesn't have a number is useless and might as well just not exist. The higher the number you have, the better in her book. She's taken these twisted ideals to many other passengers, even children, turning them into destructive scum. Part of me wonders if she initially got these ideals from Amelia, since Amelia is the only other character we've seen have an even higher number than Grace. Plus, Grace thinks 1-1 isn't even the real conductor, so. Even though Grace was a bit of a scumbag, she fulfilled her duties as an antagonist quite well. She temporarily manipulated Jessie to her side while her cronies were abusing Lake, because Lake is a denizen. That whole situation was almost a perfect parallel of the situation Jessie had with Nate. Grace and her cronies representing Jessie's friends and Lake representing Nate. Jessie was thankfully able to pass the test by standing up to Grace, forcing them to leave Lake alone. This was what granted him his exit, or so we thought. With Jessie supposedly gone and the Flex having a hold on Lake, she's determined to get off the train for good to live a life with Jessie. Thus began her mission to get a number so she could get off at all. This was one of the best episodes in all of Infinity Train for me. I loved seeing the whole process on how people initially get through the train, what determines their number, etc. It was so cool. And those large pods that transport people to certain cars was the same pod Amelia's giant robot suit used. She used her engineering expertise to turn it fully humanoid. Also, the emotional distress Lake goes through while trying to get her number is super heartbreaking to watch. Even when she's out of the mirror world, she's still a denizen of the Infinity Train, hence why she just doesn't exist in the eyes of the robots guiding passengers through the number car. The number laser even went through her hand when she tried to cheat the system the first time. Gotta hand that to Jessie for willingly going back to the train to help Lake. The bond they formed was truly something special. The way Lake was able to get out with Jessie was super clever too. This is something both books 1 and 2 did incredibly well with. The episodes that would air right before the season finales for the respective seasons always gave the audience the final goal for the protagonist. Like, that final goal was always set in stone right before the season finale. But said goals seemed almost impossible to accomplish at the time, you know, in the middle of watching that episode with no spoilers. So seeing how they were solved was very satisfying to see. Both books 1 and 2 killed it in that regard. It's so simple, but I did not see Lake just using her reflective body on Jessie's hand to copy his number so she could get out. I didn't see that coming. Lake getting her exit was a lot more satisfying than Tulip's, at least for me, because it showed it was possible for even a supernatural creature to leave the Infinity Train under proper circumstances. She's out in the real world now. She decides she wants to be called Lake now that she's in the real world. I don't know if this has ever been answered by Owen himself or any of his staff, but I personally think the reason she named herself Lake was because it was the first reflective surface she was able to look at without fear. Again, if this was deconfirmed, let me know. As for my final takeaway from this, I think I ended up liking book 2 a tiny bit more. Mainly because of how it was able to focus on the journey of a passenger and on the journey of a rogue denizen in a very balanced, well-paced manner. Even though Jessie wasn't focused on nearly as much as Tulip, I was still able to get a solid grasp of what kind of person he was, / the specifics that got him on the train in the first place. Plus, Jessie as a character was a little bit more relatable to me personally than Tulip. Very slightly, but still. Of course, there were denizens that helped regular Tulip on her journey, mainly Atticus. Atticus was a very good boy, but he didn't have a lot of personal development like Lake did. He was very helpful and loyal from the start and very helpful and loyal till the end. No growth or anything because he didn't really need any growth. There's nothing wrong with him. I just liked seeing the side-by-side growth of 2 characters in book 2 rather than just 1 character growing in book 1. I think that just about does it for this video though. Like I said earlier, let me know in the comments down below which of the books you liked more, or if you liked them equally, say that too. I'd love to know your thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like down below, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out, take care. Bye-bye.